All right, so with that lovely introduction, I am Heather, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about self-determination theory. So this became one of my favorite things when I was teaching. I taught as a full-time faculty member in our academic success department for 7 years. And in that time, one of the things that I worked the most on with my students was goal setting. And I found that if I combined a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of gratitude before students had to set goals, that they were more likely to achieve their goals, that their mindset going into goal setting, just even talking about it in class, made all the difference in the world in what they were able to achieve outside of class. So with that, I really started looking into student motivation a little more deeply. And when I got into self-determination theory, I was like, oh, this all clicks together and it makes sense. So whether you are an instructional designer or you're faculty in the classroom, whatever your role is in the college community, this is a way to just kind of look at student success through a lens of motivation. So this will be a pretty interactive presentation, and you all sent in some amazing questions. I'm not gonna have time to get to them all today, but I will give you a link to the presentation at the end, and Tom will mail that out to you as well. And any questions that I knew I probably wouldn't get to, I've included in the end of this presentation. Full disclaimer, I work very closely with ChatGPT, who I affectionately call Jeffrey, and Jeffrey and I work together in those responses. So if you see it and you're like, you notice in a link to a resource that it says ChatGPT in the link, that's because I used the web search. I wanted to, effectively answer them with my knowledge, but in a short time constraint, the easiest way to do that was to lean into generative AI and then use it to do a little bit of the first level of lifting, and then I jumped in on the second. So without further ado, what we're going to do is jump into some breakout rooms here. So once you are in the breakout room, what I want you to do is to imagine that you are a student in a class that you've either taught or you've designed. And from that student perspective, describe your favorite assignment. What do you like about it and what can you learn from it? So you'll be in breakout rooms of 3 to 4 people, and it'll be for about 5 minutes. So each person will get a minute or so to share. So be cognizant of that time so that everybody gets to talk. And again, think about this from the student perspective rather than the design or the teaching perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and create those rooms now. And you should see a join link now to join your breakout room. So I find there is this amazing thing that happens. Roz right now, is Rosalind Juster there, is demonstrating it really well. That happens when educators get together and talk about teaching, learning in their students. They smile. It's like the coolest thing ever. When you start talking about assignments that motivate students and assignments that you like, all of a sudden there's this smile thing happening, which during finals week, we really, really like. So those of you who feel like smiling at me during the webinar, please feel free to keep your cameras on, because a lot of times it's easier to be a more engaging presenter if I know who it is I'm presenting to. And then if your eyes start to glaze over, I know I'm doing something wrong. So what I want you to do now, we're going to engage in a little exercise called a chat waterfall, which is one of my favorites. And I'm the first one to break the first rule. And the first rule is don't hit enter. So if you hit enter before I say hit enter, I'm just going to call you Heather for the rest of the webinar because I'll know that you're me. But if you manage not to do that, it's going to work out really well. So what I want you to do is think about the assignments and the activities that you just talked about in that breakout room. And I want you to think about what students actually have to do, and then bring that down to the essence of what it is to one word. What are students doing? Are they building? Are they creating? Are they designing? In that assignment that you talked about, what is it students actually do? So think about one word that describes what they do. Type it. Don't hit enter yet, unless you're me. There's already one me in here. And then we're going to go ahead and make it rain. Go ahead and hit enter. Let's see what they do. Oh, there's so many. The chat is moving so quickly. Oh, experiencing, creating, connecting, synthesizing, applying, leading. Love it. Evaluating. So when you look at what they're actually doing, everything that you've written here, collaborating, exploring, creating, these things are all self-determination theory. So congratulations, just like every other webinar and talk that you go to, you already know everything I'm going to say. I'm just going to put it in a different frame. And that can be really helpful for teaching and learning because a lot of times we do things that feel like, okay, this is effective and it's working, but we don't stop to think about why it's effective or why it's working. So I'm hoping this session will help you to kind of see that through a different lens. And then when something's not working, have an extra tool in your toolkit to bring out to make it work. So self-determination theory, the gist of it, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan are the two psychologists who developed this theory. And what it is a psychological framework that explores human motivation and personality, but within social contexts. So it looks at the motivational processes that are influenced by social and environmental factors, so the things that are happening around students. And this goes a lot into what I did in my student success classes with mindfulness and gratitude. So before I had students set goals, I would have them take a minute to breathe mindfully, just notice their breath, and then a minute to write down 3 things that happened that day that they were grateful for. And what that did within that classroom setting is it eliminated some of the negative social and environmental factors that might have affected students before they walked in. So by focusing on things that help them to thrive and things that help them to feel good and safe and secure in the moment, they were able to take a different perspective looking at their goals. And that's a lot of what self-determination theory goes into. Students have the ability to do everything that we need them to do to master content, but sometimes they don't know that. And so by adding a little extra scaffolding here or a little bit more collaboration there, then all of a sudden students can see what it is that they already are capable of doing. So there's 3 basic needs that kind of are fleshed out in self-determination theory. And those needs are relatedness, competence, and autonomy. So what that's looking at is in autonomy, and especially now, we are in a constantly changing world. You know, a lot of us are in Florida. The hurricanes are really, really real. I've lived here my entire life, but the last 10 years, it just gets worse and worse. For students living with these natural disasters occurring on a super regular basis, they need that autonomy. They need to feel like they have some type of agency, some type of control in any aspect of their life that we can give it to them. So if we can like revise and reflect and readapt our college assignments to give students a little bit more choice and agency, we're giving them something that they might not have outside of the classroom. And then when we get into competence, it's a matter of helping students to realize what they can do, scaffolding assignments so that they feel like they have all the tools they need to succeed. One thing that I've been playing with that is ungrading, and it frustrates my students the first month or so. Camille nodded her head over here. Frustrates my students the first month or so, and not all faculty are going to be on board for this because it requires a lot of time the first month of the semester, but then by finals, it is a pure coast to the finish line. It's amazing because what I do early in the semester is my students turn in assignments, and in my rubric, they have certain standards they have to meet. And if they meet those standards to a level that demonstrates proficiency of the content, they get a complete and they move forward. And if they don't, they get an incomplete and they get step-by-step instructions on what they need to do to meet the level of mastery that I want them to. So the grade is either a 100 or it's a 0. They don't have to get it absolutely perfect. C's do get degrees in my class. So if they get it, you know, to that level of like, I know they can do it, even if they didn't put all their effort in, they still get the grade. But in giving them that feedback and letting them revise and resubmit their work, that is increasing their competency. It's helping them know that they can succeed. They're not turning something in and then getting a grade on it and moving on without ever seeing what it was. What did it mean? How does it build up? The other thing that I like to do in my classes for competency is I have moved away from having students submit assignments on Canvas, and instead I have rubrics in Canvas, but I have students build every assignment in my class is part of a web page they build in Canva throughout the course of the semester. So whether it's a blog, a video, an infographic, a research summary, whatever it is, it goes onto their website, and then they submit their website link to Canvas every time, and then I grade it on the rubric in Canvas. So that way, again, in building competency, my students are able to see as they go everything they've done throughout the course of the semester, and they're able to see that it all connects, that it's a constant stage of building blocks, and they have a beautiful product and learn how to build a website in the process. So that works super, super well. The other piece of this is relatedness. And just like right now, when you came out of those breakout rooms smiling, our students need those connections. They need that collaboration. We are living in a world where I think the vast majority of people right now feel really, really, really isolated. So if you're teaching asynchronously online, it's more important than ever. And if you're designing for asynchronous classes, to include assignments that let students connect to each other. I highly recommend using video. We've just started using Harmonize as our new LTI for that we really like at FSW, but there's tons of others out there. But let students hear each other's voices, let them see each other's faces. And also for faculty, or for those of you designing for faculty, we've found that it greatly eases burnout to see student faces in videos. It's a big difference between reading the words on the page versus hearing students say them. It tends to be a little quicker for grading too. And when they're connecting with each other in that way and connecting with their professors, that can be really helpful in keeping them motivated because they know who their audience is. It's much easier for them to do the work in a class if they really know the person who's going to be scoring it, or if they know the peers who are going to be reviewing it. To that end, too, another great way to increase that relatedness as part of self-determination theory is video comments. My grading times have decreased in ways you would not ever believe because I have stopped typing comments in Canvas the majority of the time. I turn on my video and leave a 30-second comment about here's what I liked, here's what I didn't, here's how you can improve, here's my question for you, and then I move on. Sometimes I do it on Saturday mornings when I've been working in the yard and the students get to see what that looks like, and it's humanizing and it's awesome. Sometimes it's at night in a hotel room after a full day of conferencing, and it's humanizing and it's awesome. So when they know who their professors are and they hear your voice and they see your face and they know that you've read their work, really, really helpful. So I know in our institution, most of our instructional designers have also taught. So when I say professors, I'm referring to them as well. But if you're on the ID side of the house and you haven't taught, these are things to kind of think about when you're designing. How can you make it easier for students to relate to their faculty members and faculty to relate to their students? So basically, fulfilling these needs, the need for autonomy, for relatedness, and for competence, increases student well-being. It helps them to feel accomplished in classes. It helps them to feel like they have a purpose in what they're learning. It makes things more relevant, and that's going to keep them coming back for more. One of the questions was about participation, and this is all about increasing student participation, really engaging them by motivating them, gets them up and moving throughout classes. So now is the fun where you are going to go on a learning adventure. So I'm going to escape out of this view. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment because I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you. And what you're going to be doing is jumping into a Google form. And that Google form is going to give you a couple different options. So I'm a big fan of learning by doing. And that's what you're going to get to do here. So you're going to have the student experience. So if you click on this Google form, and feel free to turn your cameras off while you're exploring this, once you get in here, you are going to have a Google form that you get to fill out and take an adventure on. So the first thing you'll do in this form is read through and solve a riddle. And then once you've done that, you'll have 3 things that you can choose to either look at, listen to, or watch. And then you'll have a little exercise. And when that's all done, hop on back to the chat. Oops. I just realized I was talking. I might have been muted. So we're going to go ahead and move forward just in the interest of time, but you can always come back into the Padlet later. So I have another resource for you now. It's a GTP or GPT that I created that helps you to revise college assignments within the framework of self-determination theory. So it can add components of autonomy, relatedness, and competence to your assignments, and it'll even tell you what those components are. So you'll get this whole presentation afterwards, but you can also screenshot this URL right now if you want to try it while some folks are wrapping up the Padlet. And once you are here, also, please go ahead and join the Menti. And you can do that at menti.com using, oh, I'm sorry, I did the QR code for the Menti, and I'm going to send you the link for the GPT. So looking right now, just from what you've started to explore, please summarize a takeaway from that in 10 words or less. What did you see? What did you hear? Or what did you read? I love this. Take time for creativity and community building. It makes the biggest difference. That community building in the beginning of the semester gives students a space where they feel free to express themselves later, where they're not afraid to take intellectual risks, to think critically, creatively, and do new things. Yeah, have students teach material to each other. This is an awesome one. Mhm. Learning, I love this. Learners are creators, not consumers. So one of the things I've been studying a lot lately is the creator economy. So it's like the fastest growing economy there is, and it's what a lot of our students are going to run into in the workforce. You know, even in my job as a director of online learning, I'm creating constantly. I'm creating social media posts, I'm creating videos. There's just skills that are inherent in the creator economy that are transferable to so many jobs. So having students start to create things now really prepares them for that later. And authentic content. And the options are huge. And that's one of the biggest things. You know, as humans, we all love options. So putting those options into assignments, building them in. One of the things that I do with a lot of mine is I'll give an assignment that used to be just a simple like written reflection and then give students the option of, would you like to do this, respond to this as a video post, write it in a blog style, or create an infographic. And what's nice about that from, again, a grading burnout perspective, because if the struggle is real, is that when students get to choose their deliverable, whether it's something they create visually, something they just do a video reflection of, or something they write, they're working in their strength while they're learning new material. So what they submit is something they're proud of. It's something that they engaged in and something that they really liked. Yeah, projects are awesome. This idea of design thinking and really, you know, giving students, instead of just giving them a problem to solve, giving them a question, letting them see what is the problem that they want to solve in it. So rank the following strategies in terms of their potential to increase student autonomy in the courses that you design or teach. Which of these would work best for you and your teaching or design style? And I really love the option. I'm teaching a course right now entitled Happiness in the Age of AI. And that's basically what students get to do. They get to choose something they're passionate about, study it for an entire semester, and then create a deliverable for an audience of people who'd be interested in that topic and the research they've done. And what's really cool about it is I've been teaching for 20 years. So I know what it takes to create an assignment and give them a project to do. But this way, they come up with things I never imagined. I just had a student turn in a flip book, and the flip book was focused on the benefits of reading. And it was awesome because they basically wrote a book about the benefits of reading, but in this online flip book. So there was like a whole kind of movement to it. It was great. I would have never thought to create that as an assignment. And yet a student came up with it on their own. So I get to learn from what they create, letting them choose their research topics. Yeah. And the choosing the research topics is something that's pretty easy. across different disciplines. Oh, wait, lost the Menti link. So you can join, the Menti link is right at the top of the screen here. You can join at menti.com and then use the code right there. So looking again at connections, thinking about some of the things I've said, some of what you just learned in your learning adventure, how can you help students feel connected in online classes? And again, this is just one word, just to get everybody kind of thinking along these lines. Personalized instruction for sure. Asking them what's relevant. It's really easy to send a poll out. I do before the semester starts, I send a poll out and ask them what they're interested in related to the topic of the class so that I can see, what are my students' interests going in and how can I personalize the instruction throughout the semester to touch on that here and there so that they know that I hear them. Lots of choice. I love Mentimeter. It's so fun to watch the word clouds grow. So this is just again to show that you all know this stuff. Students love feedback. I see that's getting bigger and bigger. One of the other things that I've done with feedback that I find really helpful is that the students who don't master the content, they get feedback that says they have to redo something. So I know that they're seeing my feedback because they revise it. But for the students who do master content, my feedback is a question. And then I'll tell them that I'll complete the rubric scoring when they answer the question. So I'll ask an open-ended question along with my feedback and say, you did a really great job on this, this, and this. And here's what I'm curious about. Answer this question and I'll complete your score. And so it engages them in reading my submission comments. So I know that I'm not speaking into the void. And it's one of the comments that I get the most frequently on my students' opinion surveys is that they really like the feedback in class. So that helps them feel like they're competent, like they know what they're doing and where they're going. So as you look into your spring courses right now, as you're designing, how do you think that you can integrate self-determination theory into assignment or into course design? Yeah, discuss student motivation with faculty. That's an awesome one. And make it an open discussion. This in the webinar style, there's a lot more of me talking at you than us kind of talking together. But in reading your comments, I feel like we're still having that conversation. And I think it's one of the most important things to remember is that faculty are there for students. They came into this profession for a reason. And although faculty often get very absorbed in their discipline, they're there for students. So talking about student motivation with faculty and saying what works, what doesn't, and what do you need can be a really healthy conversation for college culture all the way around. Yeah, be vulnerable. Let your students know. It's been down here in Fort Myers. It has been a rough semester. We had two hurricanes. I'm like, how do you do that in one semester? And so there have been a lot of messages that have gone out to my students saying, yeah, I don't know if we'll have internet this week. So it might be a little delayed on the grading. We'll see what happens. It's okay to not get it exactly right and perfect all the time. Be vulnerable and where your limitations are. Project-based learning is awesome. Yeah, opinion-based questions and surveys. Get their feedback. Find out what they like. What's their favorite assignment in the class, and how can you make more of those for future semesters? Ah, thank you. Yeah. Varying presentation and conversation discourse. It's really important to teach the way that we want to be taught to make sure that everybody has a voice as they come in. Mhm. Foster the interaction. And again, the thoughtful feedback is crucial. It's one of the most important things for students to know that the work they're doing is being seen, being heard, that they're not submitting it into a void. I think if they don't feel they're submitting it into a void, then we don't feel like that we're teaching into a void. And so it's a really nice combination on both sides. So that is the end of my official time with you. I'm going to go ahead and drop my contact information into the chat so that you can keep in touch.